Put a little space between
the Italian girl and
well,
you.
between the Italian girl and the Southern Cajun one over here. We're gonna get all tangled up.
The
girl.
Cajun.
Roll Tide. Roll Tide.
Says the same tied my hands up. I wouldn't be able to speak.
Oh, I stuttered.
My principal one. By all means, get the rope.
I've done some things that I'm not proud of. I gotta tell you that.
Yeah, I just feel in my own spell.
I know.
It's a little muggy. Muggy.
We are good. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'm not going anywhere.
That's right.
Okay, so we're going. Yeah, we're going.
Oh, yeah. I feel like I'm touching charges every hour.
I think maybe it's the year to start again. Yeah. Oh, really?
I do.
Okay.
It's,
It's worth coming. I will, I'll keep that in my calendar here for that. Dina's Christmas party. We're all invited to Dina's Christmas party. Oh, okay. Only if Christopher dresses up. I'm sure he will.
listen.
Yeah.
Experience.
Ooh. Come for the house tour. Alrighty, so good afternoon, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Somebody said tomorrow's Thursday, and I said, okay, and but it is, yeah.
Somewhere down the road.
This is the Thursday.
In a band with two guns to your arm and say it's not, I wish I had that day back.
Yeah, but only that day.
You'll appreciate it.
Every other day.
It's gonna be a pain in the butt.
So we want to go ahead and get started. Last time that we met, we discussed some salary proposals and we seemed to come to an agreement. But there was one area that I know that you need to continue and just look at and get review and get some information. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to give a recap where we left with the salary proposal. That it was an average 4.25% salary increase. We had agreed to a additional $3 million to be used for a one-time non-recurring bonus to be distributed at the discretion of PCTA. And I believe that was the one area that that I know we did some further work on, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. Also to include 2 days of paid planning that was agreed upon last year for all instructional staff, and additional 2 days for ESD teachers. The board was going to contribute the board is going to cover 100% of the increase in healthcare costs. There would be a 3.25% increase to all advanced degree supplements and 108,000 to increase the athletic arts and academic supplements. So that's where we left it. Lindsay, I know that you had an opportunity to meet with Dina and in HR and just get some of the numbers that needed to happen regarding
Yes, we,
3.25 increase in advanced degree supplement. Yeah, we could pass those. We'll pass this out now.
Okay, thank
Sorry
you.
about that.
No,
Sorry,
thank you.
should have done that. And I know you had talked about the regarding the non-recurring bonus, and for those who will be, for those teachers who have been in the district, Pinellas County Schools. And I think we landed from our understanding earlier today, Ellen, I think you shared with us that those teachers with 10 to 19 years, it turned out to be a $735, and those 20 years and beyond, $1,000 non-recurring one-time bonus.
yes, we were working with the total within the parameters of the total of 3 million, item 2A, 3 million for a one-time
Right.
bonus. That did look like, just based on our discussions about who would be eligible for that, it did look like those, professionals, or rather those, employees on either scale, either the grandfather or the performance scale, that were at 10 to 19 years would be at 735, and then anyone at 20 years or above would be at 1,000.
Mhm.
That takes us right at, according to the numbers that we were working with, maybe $1,000 over 3 million, which I figured that so we want to make sure that everybody understands that that could be that number is approximate, but we think
Yeah.
it would move very, very little. We think that would move very, very little, and I imagine that our unit would probably fit within it, given any kind of updates that we may have had since then. But that's what the approximate value looked like. And what that ends up doing is making more equitable the total increase. For example, on the grandfather scale, that brings the lowest increase to about total percentage increase to about 3.9, which is not just it's much closer within the range that we're looking at the average of 4.25. That's just on the grandfather scale. And I know, just acknowledging what you have in your packet that you distributed was, calculating it on the performance scale is a little bit different because everyone has a different, comes in at a different point. But I know that this walks you through how to calculate the individual employee's total increase. So they could do that based on the information they have about their own salary.
Right.
Yes. So we know that we are looking at that, and then additionally within the packet that I know that y'all just brought out was we're just a few remaining pieces on Article 31 and Article 38.
So let me point to the Article 31 first, the teacher evaluation. We have been discussing that over the past few months. In addition to the previous agreements that we've made regarding the number of observations, I know one of the last things we were talking about was regarding the probationary contract teachers' ability to request a targeted observation. So we did accept your latest proposal regarding that. I know we shared with a little bit back and forth that we may not have agreed totally with that, but we want an agreement. We're going to go ahead and accept that added language. So I believe that was on page 3, number B2.
Thank you. And as we discussed in that meeting, in the meeting of the Appraisal Advisory Committee and beyond, we think it affords, and I think everybody at the table is interested in making sure that our newest teachers have, whether they're coming in with experience or not, have the most opportunity to hone their craft and to and find their place as a valued employee in the district. So I think that this gives them the opportunity to have even more sort of control over that.
Right. Just gives them every opportunity to get the best that they can be
Absolutely.
in that one. So yes, I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Sure. So now Article 38, this is in regard to our specialized clinical services. The committee that was formed to address the article came to several recommendations that some were from PCTA, some were from the district staff. So I just wanted to touch base on a few of the items that were agreed upon and that they're recommending to this group this evening. The one area that we agreed upon and are recommending is that to add school counselors to the Article 38 of specialized clinical services. And this was to address that specific group noted in the contract, but we agreed to expand this article to include school counselors. So that was one. The committee recommends adding language regarding the collaboration with principals to review schedules, to ensure a lunch period and uninterrupted planning is provided. Also to discuss and review the expectations of duty and proctoring of tests to ensure that they're not excessive. That would impede their other responsibilities serving our students. And last night, the committee did agree to add a recommendation that, and this is on number 3, we added the last sentence of modifications may be necessary to address student needs, and in such cases, notification will be provided by the specialized clinical staff member to the site-based administrator, and that allows for that autonomy of that employee to make the decisions to reflect their schedules through the day. We also noted on 4 that an alternative performance evaluation form will be developed, and that addresses the concern that was brought forward that the current form being used doesn't necessarily reflect the duties they perform in their roles. So we will hopefully have this agreement, and we will get to work on that and be able to get that moved forward. There were a couple items that that either was partially, come to an agreement, and areas that we were not able to come to an agreement to present today. And that first one started with the number 5. And I will just read just for the sake of reading. Regarding the space shall be provided for all school personnel where confidential conversations may be held. This includes itinerant staff who will be provided an office or class area at their assigned school, which is already in contract, but we added for one-on-one sessions with students that a private workspace will be made available. It really was intended to address the concern that when working one-on-one with students in a confidential manner, that they needed a private workspace. I know as people are coming in, if we need another packet, just let us know. So we have them up here. So. A rationale, or a reasoning why the district can't guarantee. The request I know from the side was for all work done with students, even in a small group, to have a private setting. And we just really cannot guarantee that each school building and each school site has the space for every single employee to have a private area on their own.
If they're doing a mediation between 2 students, they need confidentiality. So the one-on-one limits that, because they might have 2 kids in there at the same time. It still requires confidentiality. If they are doing a grief group, or was brought up by one of the clinicians last night, which could be 4 or 5 students, still must be confidential. This does not have to be a classroom. We're not looking for an enormous space. Every single building has available spaces for them to do that. I would really like the one-on-one specification to be removed. For sessions with students, private workspace will be made available. Doesn't have to be a castle or a palace. It needs to be private. All of our buildings have the ability to do that.
So
During the time of service.
Yes. Yes, they don't
So
have to
in
have it
our-
permanently for the whole day.
So in our contract already stated that a space will be provided for all school personnel where confidential conversations may be held. That's already in there. And so if that is the case, that can be utilized. That is what we are proposing. And again, that is what we had, as again, the committee having the discussions, which the committee is presenting recommendations here. So I am sharing what we were able to come to an agreement on, and what we weren't.
So for number 5, so I know, and we spoke last night about, I think, it not really being necessary to restate the contract, but I do think that it gives rise to a point of discussion. So if what the district is maintaining is that a space should be provided for all school personnel where confidential conversations may be held. What we've said is that those confidential conversations could include more than 1 student. So are we saying that the existing language should be interpreted to include any conversation that must be kept confidential and is not necessarily limited to a one-on-one student or one-on-one meeting with a student?
Yeah, the language that exists right now already guarantees a confidential space. The discussions that were taken outside of our discussions was a private, which we were saying, we assumed what you meant was a private room.
So what is the difference between explain, I just want to understand confidential space or private
Our
space? What,
concern, and we just touched on this last night, the concern that's been raised is I forget the language that was proposed, where direct services are provided. If it's a larger group, we can't guarantee at every school that there's going to be a private room that would accommodate a large number of people. So that's why we were limiting it to one-on-one conversations. We can guarantee a private space. And the difference between the existing language in the contract on 26F and the sentences that's been added is the word private. I mean, confidential, private, those are kind of the same things, but when you're talking about a group of people anyway in a room, it's not confidential anyhow.
tell that to AA.
Huh?
Well, I
She
think,
said, talk to AA.
Oh,
It's
Well, that's the
confidential.
difference, the
Yeah.
space limitations that we can't commit to always having a private classroom to accommodate a larger number of people than
Or
a
anyone.
one-on-one.
and just for the benefit of those watching today that might not have necessarily tuned in yesterday, we had a discussion at the table from each of the the groups that were represented there, and each of the practitioners shared what they thought probably was the maximum number of students that they would work together in provision of direct services
That needed
that
confidentiality.
would need confidentiality. And I think the max of those at the table was 8. I believe it was 8.
Right.
And so I still think, and like you said, Gloria, I'm trying to understand the difference between confidential and private. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly. When you say confidential that exists already in 26F, are you saying that the district, because I don't know that this has not necessarily been the way it's been practiced, but we understand as well that that could be addressed because the way that it happens in practice, when we hear about practitioners that are in a common space with maybe a half wall or some cubicle, and multiple conversations are happening at one time, which I don't know particularly how an SLP does that. When you're working with hearing impaired students, the failure to provide a private space is I think affects would certainly affect the quality of the service, in addition to the compliance with requirements for confidentiality. But if what you're saying is that this is already happening based on, or it's included in the language of the contract as it stands, are you saying that the district understands confidential to mean private? And then if it's a confidential conversation, that a space will be provided to maintain that confidentiality?
Well, I mean, confidential means what it means, and we put this in, I think, last go around, this sentence about a space will be provided where confidential conversations can occur. I personally don't believe we need the sentence that says we're gonna do something that's private, because confidentiality assumes there's not a lot of people listening, so.
Not necessarily a lot, but I think, but our practitioners also shared how there are and I think Nancy just touched base on it, was that there are direct service provision scenarios that would include multiple students being serviced at the same time. There are still privacy requirements, even under the law, much less good practice. So are we acknowledging that a private space will be provided to meet those confidentiality requirements when they exist? So in other words,
there's confidential versus providing a service. I think
But
what
about
I'm
it-
trying to understand, again, I don't want to, this is committee discussion, right? Which we couldn't obviously come to an agreement on. I want to be sure that we're all understanding confidential. There is a difference between a confidential, you don't have confidential conversations with in every task that you do with students.
No.
Right?
Right.
Now, Juliana may, in her world and her work, that's different because you're doing a lot of assessing and a lot of conversations. When you're talking about the wide spectrum of the employees identified in Article 38, that's a wide variety of people. Counselors could be doing group that's not necessarily confidential, they're doing group work,
Right.
but they could be they could be talking with a student or two, as you brought forward, that does need to be confidential. So in those incidences, they should have a,
What if we just, the one-on-one is what is, I think, a holdup, because this implies that it can only be a private space if it's just me with one student. So what if we said for confidential sessions with students? If, for when providing direct services is too broad of a term, one-on-one is too restrictive of a term, what's a meet in the middle,
Small group,
small group?
for small
For
groups, for
one-on-one to
one,
small
or
group
one,
sessions?
yeah. for singular or small group sessions,
For singular or small group
would mean that they're
sessions?
not doing,
Individual, that's the word, for individual or small group sessions.
that'll work. That'll
So-
work, and it will keep
You're
the
gonna need to
expectation
repeat
from
that
being,
for
For
me.
individual or small group sessions.
Right.
private workspace.
that will, for, that'll prevent any assumption that it's gonna
For
be a full classroom.
confidential,
Or
Yep.
individual or small group confidential sessions with students. Certainly.
But the confidential pieces.
it's already said either way, if they want.
Yeah, it's already- it's already-
That was what the whole, I mean, it's to go from, and I see what you're saying, because it is too broad on the one end. But then on the, this is too restricted. So for individual or small group,
Yeah, I
would
think
that
that-
be an acceptable?
I think that would include, that would then encompass a mediation, which is usually two kids and the clinician. Or
So
that's
our-
what they were, I mean,
Just
the
wanted to-
examples they gave.
Just
I,
like-
I understand where you're going with this. I'm just trying to go back to the language that was, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, right? And I
have that language.
have it right, it's
It-
copied right into
Right in
the.
front of us.
Yeah, we all have it right here. A space shall be provided for all school personnel where confidential conversations may be held. If it's mediation, if it's one person, if it's two people, if it's five people. If the
Confidential
con- If it is confidential conversation, it is said that a space shall be provided.
But that hasn't been interpreted as a private space. They have been in with other people, maybe not on top of them, but in the same space. Let's say in a room like this, maybe they are in that corner, but another clinician is in that corner. That is not private. It's not a private space. This is saying that a private space for these purposes only need to be provided.
And I can speak to that because there is a office at our school that has 3 different teachers share, or 3 different professionals share this space. And whenever we do have to have confidential meetings,
Mhm.
they end up asking the parent, is it okay that this person is in the room?
Right.
So, but that, and I see that's where
So
it's
do you
coming
have-
from.
So, and I'm gonna play where we are standing from that we have said from the very beginning. Do you have 2 empty classrooms where those people could go and be assigned? Or, I'm sorry, not classrooms, I'm sorry, not classrooms, I'm sorry, I mentioned that. An office, another closed door space, because I know your school, there's
Right.
a lot of open space in the
Right.
middle.
But I'm saying I can see how, why this is an issue because there are those times when.
Absolutely, but again, the majority of the time, it is not needed. So again, and that is, sorry, the nature of some of our schools, and for that's what you're asking us to put in here. And we cannot guarantee that it's all day, every day, right? A space can be made available when it is needed. We are trying to very hard to recognize that, but I can't sit, we've already said, Mr. Herbert will not like us
No,
very
not
much
really.
if I say we have to go build. We don't have the money for that, right? And it wouldn't get approved by the state. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Yeah.
So it's the word private, correct?
Yes.
So Paul, the situation you just described, where there's a large room and people are separated, that would not probably fit the definition of private, and that was the concern of some of the schools, that there could definitely be a time where there's not a room available for this, a separate private room. So what are we gonna do? We committed to it, so that's the issue. And that's the reason the committee couldn't come up and agree with this recommendation.
I'm just trying to declare the difference between
Yeah,
confidential and private, because
Right.
Yeah,
that employee more than likely is keeping it confidential,
right, exactly.
but it's not necessarily considered private.
On this workspace.
No, I just think the private, I don't think it is an issue for most schools. I just don't think it's gonna be an issue. Not enough of an issue to hold up this whole procedure.
I've been there and done that. I've had to ask a room such as this, and I had to ask two people who would be willing to share it because I had no more space. The next year I had 2 empty classrooms and I was able to move one of them out and give them.
For general purposes,
I'm just telling you what.
for
I
general
couldn't
purposes, that's
do.
fine. I'm just saying there is always a spot that
Correct.
someone can move into to talk to the one child or the two
Space
kids or.
shall be provided for all, and I understand what you're saying, but that, and again,
I just don't.
for confidential. We're probably gonna have to allow for caucus time anyway, so why don't I note this and
Mhm.
let us come back to this?
Sure.
Let me get to the 2 other areas that I know that you are, probably have looked at that is not on, and I wanted to just reiterate that we could not come to an agreement on, was, the request the staff will be assigned caseloads informed by recommendations from their respective local, state, and national professional associations and organizations, and we can't guarantee that a specific number of students are assigned to our specific employees that are identified in this group. We also had the discussion last night at length regarding the itinerant or split members, staff members, that they not be included in the school's regular duty or proctoring assignments. And we had several discussions or several examples. There are just so many unique schedules and needs to commit to this for all. And again, we did not come to an agreement on that. So that kind of summarizes our proposal or where we are right now. I'm going to probably with our group talk a little bit more about this number 5 that is in here on Article 38. And so wanted probably at this point, you want to take some time to caucus and just review. I didn't know how
Well,
to-
did you want to say something about the other 2 issues before? the caucus?
So I think that, I think for numbers, for the benefit of anybody who wasn't at the table last night, number 3, what we had, our counter, just like you said, was the inclusion of exemption from itinerant or split staff from duty or proctoring. That was at the very end of number 3, which kind of became this condensation of a number. We addressed a number of points in that
Yep.
piece.
Mhm.
I think, and given the movement that we've demonstrated on so many of these other issues, I think it's reasonable to expect that we really focus on trying to find a way to meet the needs of some of the most essential needs. And one of the things that brings all of this about is the staff shortage, which of course touches every part of our organization, the state, the country. But specifically to these practitioners, the heightened need, and heightened is, I'm sure, a gross understatement, for quality and comprehensive mental health services. And part of what happens when those two counter forces collide is that the existing staff cannot with fidelity provide the level of services that we all recognize is on a good day what our students deserve, but on bad days what they desperately need. So one of the challenges that specifically affects itinerant staff is the fact that they have the same or even a greater number of students to serve, but limited time on campus to do that. So I think I was thinking about it last night because we had so much discussion around this, trying to find a way to make it work to address the issue is to consider exemption from duty for itinerant or split staff inside the student day. So duties that fell within the student day, dismissal and so forth, which is when we have perhaps one of the greatest needs for supervision. As students move around and potentially move outside the building, that I'm sure that our itinerant split staff would not have an issue if they weren't otherwise wrapped up in an IEP meeting or something like that to participate in duty. But if we could preserve the time within the student day that allowed them, in the face of all of these external factors that otherwise limit their schedule, to focus on serving the needs of the students, that would be a huge step. That would be a big step. And it would, again, preserve the overall meaning, what we're trying to do here, which is to allow our professionals to do what they need to do and want to do and what we all want them to do for our students. So I think that that's a reasonable counter on number 3. I am concerned that number 6, which was our number 6, it's not on this, obviously it was because it was a counter. But what we had started with was a proposal to align caseloads and workloads to the recommendations of our practitioners, professional associations and organizations. Best practices, like to make a commitment to align with best practices as recommended across the country. But we recognized yesterday that is exceedingly difficult to do in a huge state as ours that consistently ranks among the lowest in education funding, and which limits what any of us can do here locally about caseloads or workloads, recognizing that is a problem that we all face. So we thought that coming back on that language to instead, if not necessarily require that to align, alignment with those guidelines, but to at least acknowledge those guidelines and to recognize that our process should be informed by them, if nothing else, and then as a best practice. Not only does that keep our head in the game about what we should be striving for, but it also, I think, empowers us and urges us to take a stand when it comes to those who can make changes like that. If we say we have made a local commitment to abiding by best practices, but we are constrained to do that because we literally don't have the staff, we literally don't have the funding, that shouldn't just stay here. It shouldn't just be bounced back and forth to be digested among us and throw up our hands and say, what can you do? What we can do is take a stand and have a strong voice, whether that is here, for those watching at home, our administrators, our school board, they should be vocalizing that. We want to meet that commitment locally, and we need accountability from the state to give us the funding that allows that to happen. We can't just marinate on it here and not doing anything. And adding that, even just as an aspirational goal, builds in that commitment and that accountability. And I still think that that's important.
I do as well. I think that the wording that really was bothersome for you, Paula, last night was they will be assigned. That was and that was, is there, what better wording would show the aspirational work that is our intention and our goal to try to come closer to the recommendations of those things? What wording would work so that we could have it here without saying they will be assigned, because that was clearly the disturbing part,
So.
because we can't possibly do it.
We hear what you're saying, and, the purpose of the contract is to bind, make it a contractual obligation. If what you're saying is that's not your intent, but you just want it to be known that we have an aspirational goal.
That we wish to
Let
work
us
toward
look
it.
at that language, and, when we separate, I just want to be understand that, but just put language in that staff will be assigned caseloads. Suggests that if you go over a certain ratio, we are in violation of the contract and we can't commit to that. So that was the discussion last night, but I understand what you're saying. That's not your intent to say that every school is bound by those ratios. Rather, you just want to make it a statement that we want to
Right,
work.
they
together.
should be, And I'm
If
sure every
possible,
school would
yeah,
love
if
to be.
possible.
We recognize the
would-
impossibility of it,
Yeah.
that has nothing to do with anyone sitting at this table. But we also recognize that if that's ever gonna change, then we have to make a commitment to do, to,
That is our.
to acknowledging
our
that
goal,
those are best practices.
To
and
work
they
in that
exist.
direction.
Right. So contract's really not the place to put in our aspirational goal, but if that's what you want, we can work toward that language. Let us look at how we could possibly do that.
Maybe, see, yeah, just see if you can
Okay.
phrase it in a way that would not feel like it would be violated.
All right. So,
Thank
And,
you for considering.
Yeah, I do appreciate that.
And thank you
And-
as well.
And to try to consider about keeping them out of duty during the school day, like leaving it open for dismissal, the dismissal duty. Like you said, unless they're otherwise in a conference or something. But, or I guess even the morning.
Mhm.
Some of the practitioners prefer the morning, some of them prefer the
well,
afternoon.
there we go, you know, that's.
And, well, everybody should really be asked their preference. You can't always give them their preference, but you should always ask your employees their preference.
But if we follow this, if we have said, again, when I'm coming back to this idea of being aspirational, if there's a discussion here of collaboration, then yeah, that should be a part of the collaboration, is talking about what preferences or what that individual staff member has and why. Because not once has any one of the professionals that we've been in conversation with said, I'm not a morning person. That's why I don't want morning duty. Not once. Now, could that happen? Sure. And that would come out through the collaborative process, but
That would be what I
overwhelmingly,
would say.
it's the very reason that 3 has gotten so full of this idea of collaboration, because they're constrained in so many ways in providing the services that we need them to provide to our students. And this exemption for the itinerant staff would be a huge step actually towards making that happen. And it is about the provision of services to students.
So can I just, the issues that we just discussed on Article 38, if we could work through those, are we in agreement on everything else?
Yes,
So we'd be able to settle this tonight if we can come up with the issues on, working within the student day for exempting duty and an aspirational goal on caseloads aligning with what professionals recommend.
Actually, yes, I think so.
mhm.
And Paula brings up a great point that I would need clarification on. On the salary increase sheet, the proposed teacher salary increase, the green one. We've had a question about like this before, and I just want to make sure, walk me through it if I'm missing it. But I see the new teacher starting salary, that's that last cell.
Sorry, I didn't, put that on, or I didn't mention that, right? Are you looking at where?
So the last green cell on the right, that last line must, the new teacher starting salary,
$50?
there's a note that it must increase by 75% of the grandfather, which is
Yep.
50,000. And in keeping in mind that we're edifying in this, what we had just spoken about verbally. But again, we see a difference there between that and the starting salary of 51,000.
So, yeah, I'm so sorry, I didn't mention that earlier. So when we brought forth a couple months ago, that our direction was to get our starting salary up, and we had 52, and we heard, nope, that was not something you all were interested in. So we backed down on the 52 and really feel we need to move to 51. So even though it was it's just a little over 400 off of what would
Meet the
the statute requirements, we really feel that we need to be at 51 to,
But what is the starting salary if we just went by the formula? Is the 55,567?
Correct.
That's the starting salary. That's it. That's
well,
what
we
we're,
are proposing to go to 51.
and we're rejecting.
So what does that
We-
do
then we-
to the starting? So, okay,
Then we're done. I don't think then we can go. We,
You can what?
we need to have a starting salary of 51,000. We need to be able to bring in our teachers, as you have always talked about, we are short-staffed, we have to be competitive, and we've talked about this with our neighboring districts. We have to bring our starting salary to 51.
So you're not going
not
to
sure.
even discuss this anymore if we don't accept giving them an extra, what is it, an extra $430 each?
Are we're not into discussion with that? You said absolutely no, so I'm kind of saying.
But I don't
absolutely no.
I don't understand. They are already getting a higher increase.
Starting teachers, they don't have an increase, they have a starting salary.
Yeah, but the starting salary is increasing
Correct.
from last year. I don't know, actually, I don't see it here and I don't have it with me. What was?
By
last year?
more than what other people, I,
The current starting salary is 49,122. But then you have to have funding for that. Does that include our fund?
It does.
49,120 includes referendum.
124. That's the
Thank
current
you.
starting salary. It's right there in front.
all right, we'll have to talk about that.
Oh, I see. Yeah, current starting teacher. Sorry, it's right there. And
talk
again,
about-
I want to, and I know you said, you mentioned that you accidentally didn't point that out, which
didn't
I,
go through the whole sheet,
understandable.
So it was on there.
but I think that I just want to point out that that's one, we get a lot of questions about why our veterans, and particularly on the grandfather scale, can't be afforded like a flat increase across the board. That changed last year. The salary increase requirements, the TSIA from the state changed last year to mandate these different levels and it's all oriented around the sort of the grandfather increase. I hate saying that, but that's what we say. It's oriented around that grandfather increase.
Yeah.
What's important to note about this is that because when you change the grandfather amount, it changes everything else, right? It changes all of the other figures. So any change we make there has an impact on every other figure. But it's important to note that the new starting teacher salary does not have that same impact. It basically can operate independently of anything else. And that is a way to get around putting additional money into the rest of the scale. You can move money there or add money there, and it doesn't have any kind of impact on the rest of the scale. I think it's important for people to realize why that number matters and why it's kept out.
Also, at a recent meeting that we met with you, when we were discussing the 3 million, that was the offer for the one-time bonuses. And we suggested that we asked for an additional, what was it, 2,060?
Oh, no, 200.
200,000, no, 200,060
fringe.
to cover the fringe. And we were told, no, absolutely not. This is it.
This is all we have.
This is all we have. And yet, and that was for your teachers who are already here and working and struggling. And we were told no. And we believed you and we didn't ask again. And now you're saying, though, that you are willing to do extra money for people who are not even here yet.
What's the impact, Kevin? What's the impact of that? It's a $432 difference. I don't have my stuff sorted that way. What's the total impact on that?
Dave, you have that number on top of your head?
Sorry,
I said, Dave, you have that number? on top of your head?
I didn't mean to throw that at Kevin if it was a Dave question.
We're gonna be higher. Yeah, that's the.
Right.
What about
you know,
right now? New teachers to the district would receive this. I can figure, I mean, I can figure it out. I just didn't have it sorted that way. I thought you might have the number right off the top of your head.
I just think that, I mean, I know that the superintendent and me are worried about, we're always worried about ratifying. We're always worried about getting something across the table to the members. And the concern was, there were all kinds of concerns about Article 38, that maybe that would cause problems, and I didn't think so. What I do think will cause problems is something like this. This affects everyone. This, I think, would have more of a negative effect on how people view this package. And so that's my concern. That is my concern, because as I said last night, very clearly, I said last night that we understand the restrictions of a budget. We understand the restrictions of the budget that was given you by the legislature. That is seemingly more than we've ever received before, but is actually not more because a minimum of 40 million must be set aside for charter and vouchers and such. I understand those restrictions. Everyone at this table understands those restrictions. Your employees don't understand them that much. They don't understand that there are restrictions. All they see is they are not getting the raise they were hoping for. The raise they need to survive in Pinellas County. We're trying to steer them away from that feeling by showing them all these other things that we are getting for them, that you are trying to do for them in order to supplement their income, including the supplements that will be raised as well. This number for people, for yes, the new teachers who are here, but also for the people who are not even in the district yet.
So we understand what you're saying, but we need to be competitive with our neighbors. Our neighbors are adopting referendum, and this includes the referendum monies that we've had in Pinellas for a long time. And we have a commitment in our contract to try to reduce or minimize the reliance on that referendum. And so by raising the minimum salary, which includes referendum, we are trying to maintain a competitive edge against neighboring districts who will now be having the ability to hire employees that we would hope to attract here. That's the purpose.
Specifically. That's the referendum.
Yeah.
Yes, Pasco did get their
So-
referendum
And I
across.
also want to remind us that, over the last several years, we're trying to raise the starting teacher salary, we did it collaboratively raise teacher salary, but there was resistance to doing that. Had we not done that, though, we wouldn't have met that 47,500 as quickly as we did. So I think from that perspective, it was important that historically for us to raise that salary, but to Lori and Paula's point, for us to maintain our competitive edge with other districts, having Pasco recently passed referendum. You know, you guys mentioned in Barty and recently about people going to San Diego County,
Mhm,
and if we're not raising our teacher salary and we're competitive,
right.
that's going to continue to happen.
And that's true. They do, the referendum will take place next year. They also gave them 5.2 this year.
And I did,
And that was noted by your employees.
I did a quick wild complication on the top of my head. It fell into about $400,000.
Sorry, what's the 400,000? Sorry.
A quick wild, and I'll verify when I get in the office, but I think it's about $400,000. The teachers have currently have a system now, as a guess.
Or you mean existing? Because I'm showing, and tell me if we're looking at it differently, but I went back.
I'm not looking at it, just guessing.
So I went back to 200 or yeah. Yeah, I think I don't think that the way I'm looking at it is because I'm trying to decide, I'm trying to figure out whether we're looking at people who were like, for example, would a teacher who be considered on a new teacher salary if they came in February of last year and would not otherwise be credited with that year? Or is it just anybody who came in after July 1st?
I'm sorry. It's about $172,000.
Yeah, I was
guessing on top of my head.
Yeah, I was thinking it was probably closer to somewhere between 170 and 200. Yeah, which would have taken care of the fringe that we proposed, including in the one-time payment.
So no, we're back up to 52. So
Sorry?
we're back up to 52,000. So.
Yeah,
Can I ask, what actually, how much was the referendum again? The total referendum funds is what, 5,000? 5,730. Thank you.
It's just like, what, this first year, right now, they're already hired, first year teachers, what are they making? Is it the 48 or? 49.
1, 2, 1, 2,
And is
4.
that 49,124 with the referendum?
yes.
Thank you.
I think it's also important to know, and I know obviously we have, both sides have a lot to talk about. We have been very much active in the conversations and concerning the way that Pinellas considers the referendum when, as it comes to the calculation of the starting teacher salary in compliance with state law. We're very much aware of that and invested in that conversation. we're the ones that run the referendum. We'll have it again to do in another 2 years, so I definitely think about that a whole lot. That being said, increases to the starting teacher salary without commensurate increases to the rest of the scale, again, independent of any kind of statutory requirement, at least in relation to the other levels. That's going to compound the compression that we're already working to escape. So if this really is an effort to think about what we're going to do about the referendum, which I get it, we got to think about it. Just independently raising the starting teacher salary without addressing the compression issues, that's
So
not
at
the way
this
to do
point,
it.
you do not want to provide our beginning teachers with a
We are
50 salary
going
of
to
51,000.
caucus.
Yeah, let's
what-
caucus, but I think I'm
That's what
in,
I'm hearing.
yeah, we're in
That's what I'm
favor
hearing.
of raising their salary as has been done within the rest of the
But
negotiations.
you're
The
not,
raise
you're
that
not
they-
wanting to provide a starting salary of 52,000.
I'm not hearing that at all. What I'm hearing is, I'm sorry, what I'm hearing is that we need to caucus.
Okay, okay.
Okay, thanks. We'll turn the broadcast off while we're on caucus. Thanks, Lynn. Jeff,
What?
hate to be so rude as to ask you to step out. There is a lovely atrium, Dennis Guardian. Well, let us know. We'll let you right back in. Yeah. I'm not gonna let you be locked out.
There's still things that will happen.
Probably on that.
Tell about the night that we ran into Kevin at a restaurant when we were all out and you were there with your wife and your mom.
Yes.
And I went and sat down at their table.
Wasn't just you, it was you, it was Mike.
Mike, me and Mike, yeah.
Joanne, Nicole, and Nellie.
His
And
mother-
Nelly too.
His mother was like.
That's a party.
My mother is, currently 86 years old, at that time, she started with
She looks amazing. Yeah.
Manhattan every night, swims every day.
There you go.
See,
That's awesome.
Everybody
Swimming.
starts
Swimming.
swimming. A long life.
Supposed to be good.
Yeah, we didn't make a total. I'm probably didn't make enough for every
Paula,
person
didn't
we
they
could
teach
share.
you in education not to put so much red on a student's paper? Hurts their feeling.
That's what I use it.
I'll try to fluid it into purple or something. So, oh, okay, so I will let you guys go ahead and start.
us?
Yeah.
Okay,
We have, we've made it clear that our concerns about, raising additional increases to the starting salary, and, it sounds like, or believe that y'all have heard those concerns and understand where we're coming from on that. So would you like to talk about the salary piece and then lead into 38, or do you prefer that?
Okay, so we will leave our starting salary, and I'm not really sure if it's 50,567.75, or it's gonna be 50,568.
Thank you,
Okay,
thank you.
and so we have, oh, and that is referenced at the bottom, yes. So we have struck through the starting salary 51.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Then on Article 38, we made 2 adjustments. So on number 5, we adjusted that language to now read a private space will be provided for individual or small group confidential sessions. On number 6, we added number 6, specialized clinical staff members who are itinerant or have split schedules will be excluded from the school's duty schedule during the student day. And as mentioned, we just, we could not accept the addition of the, let me see if I can get to the words, the aspirational goal of the recommendations for, based on numbers provided by state, local, national agencies, so.
right.
Well, I understand it's difficult because of, again, so many things that are outside of any of our control, but I think that the conversation at the table on Article 38 evidenced a concern for making sure that the clinicians have the resources, the time, to serve, to best serve our students.
And I will let you know from a district standpoint, that is our specialists who are overseeing each of these departments. That is something on their mind all the time.
Mhm.
And that is something that they continuously, have discussions with as they have their, touch points with their employees as well, and continue.
That is what I know that is something that the district does feel strongly about, is making sure that the kids do get the services that they need, especially during this time where the mental health issues seem to be are on a rise, have been on a rise. I do think also that looking at this in 3 years or whatever, we look at this contract again, we may be in a much better place. We hope to be in a much better place. We hope that there are fewer mental health issues among our students. And we hope that we have resolved some of the staff shortages and all of those issues and more students back, all the things. Right now, it is a very bad time. It's an impossible time to meet those recommendations, but let's hope sometime in the future it is easier to do.
And if I may, I just wanted to add again, additional appreciation. We talked about it last night, but for recognizing the need for school counselors to be included in this article. We know that there was disagreement over that, over where that inclusion came from, and we talked about that at the table in Article 38, but your willingness to bring them back in, I think, is, we feel as though it was very respectful of the process, and also it meant a lot to our counselors. It means a lot to have the work that they do affirmed as being a really important part of this, that, you know, our district's offering these specialized clinical services. It meant a lot to them. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
They wanted us to tell you, thank
Mhm.
you.
So.
All right, so are we in agreement?
We are,
Awesome,
Yeah.
excellent.
He's great.
Very glad to hear that. I
Okay.
know, I know this was a pretty much a longer process, but I think it was had some good discussions, so we were ready to move forward. Our goal is to get this to the November 15th board meeting so that our employees could get their increases in their retro before the winter break.
Yes.
Dave Richmond, there you go. Dave's like, thank you.
Yes.
But his
Did
team.
you hear that, Dave?
I do wanna, you know what, while I do have a minute, I have an audience too, you know, I really do wanna thank Dave, absolutely, Mr. Smith, who works under, but Dave and his team who have been, it's easy for us to sign a piece of paper. It is weeks and weeks and weeks of work that his team does to make sure that, that it's done right, that the retro is done right, that the salary increases, can get in and in a timely manner.
Mhm.
I know everybody wants it tomorrow, that just doesn't happen, but, Dave, we just want to say thank you for that, so it is, it's a
no,
lot of work.
I definitely think that the employees are impressed with how quickly they do receive them. And I tell them all the time that it's because of you. I tell them all the time, because you are absolutely terrific at what you do.
I did have one question. So we did this for support, is we take the bonus in one check and the salary increases in retro and another. Do you think teachers would?
I think that's fine.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that. I was meant to ask you that because I do know that's how my husband received them.
But I think we could do that as well.
I think that's
Separate.
That would
perfectly
be, that would be great.
Okay.
I think it helps keep things clear to make sure, you know, the more distinction we can have between,
Just looking real quick, it might be the bonus goes first,
right?
I know.
if that's okay.
Well, and just,
We'll use the bond.
yeah, that makes. I think we did retro first.
We did on the support, it's just the way the periods fall for instructional. And with Thanksgiving.
Oh, right.
coming up,
Yeah.
And there's
different.
more work to do on the salary increases for instructional.
Mhm.
Yeah, extra hourly
Right.
jobs, and there's a lot of different things that.
And thank you again, Dave and Dina also. Dave, I know you provided the information, and Dina sat down with me to talk a little bit about, update the information we had and help me to understand the way that experience was credited here.
Yes.
So this is, you know, making clear that our one-time payment is really to value the experience that's, you know, our most experienced veterans for what they've done here in Pinellas County. And that not only does that value what they've done, but also encourages them to stay with us.
Absolutely.
Keep our
That was
schools
incredibly
great.
helpful. And
Very helpful.
anytime we reached out with questions,
Yeah.
Dina was right there to give us the answer. So thank you so much.
Thank you all very much.
While y'all are signing and moving paperwork around, I know that Lindsay and Nancy have said thank you on behalf of the specialized clinical services staff. I want to personally say, as somebody who sat at this table for 4 years now with this, to express our gratitude that for this and movement forward. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Juliana, for sticking with it. Worked really hard on this for a long time. Let's all remember this moment. Yes. Does that have a unicorn?
I heard January, but I don't need anything that's friends. I eat things to swim, but I can't swim. So there we go. We balance each other. Separate group. It counts. I think separate group's pretty mild, but mild. Born raised right here. Supplement. When are we gonna meet?
Oh, yeah, when should we meet for the supplement?
Sorry.
I know, seriously, I know,
Parks, I just closed up
I know you,
do that pretty quickly.
I know, you can't wait to be in the room with me again. It won't be outside, I won't be.
Right? I keep saying we're. gonna
I
do that
promise.
once.
I won't put you through that again.
Planet.
I won't put you through that.
As soon as I can
I'm always.
get a
in the
break
field.
and get up here to the admin.
What? So I don't have to, I have to sign every page, right?
Just initial.
You missed one here, Paul. Because I was just looking for yours and signing under yours.
The page was left intentional blank.
Okay, cool.
I saw that on the text.
It was like
Electronic one. This page is got
two.
electronic one.
Really?
Two. All signed.
That was all good.
I think, do you have to sign that back page too?
Goodness, I failed on that.
We can just send it back over if you want.
Here, the back page on the one.
Oh, that she's got, okay. Yes.
I've got the worst signature. And just a
Paula?
reminder to everybody watching that, so we're gonna be doing a paper-based ratification. We have to
this? They were.
This
this time, and so.
Yeah, they probably stuck
all the
together.
Materials and instructions will be coming out.
Cindy, are those,
Yes.
is that the packet?
That's the very last page.
And I signed that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I got both. Article
Yes.
38 and everything.
We've already
Let's
got
make
the,
sure, yeah. Oh,
you know, we start ahead of time knowing that we're getting close. Go ahead and label it, go ahead and get that process going. Last time, and the district really helped with
I think so.
stuffing of the envelopes, like making, you know, getting the materials into the envelopes, such as the big one, and got it, and got the pony, got them out quickly via the pony. The challenge is.
This, where's, I need the article, where's the article, our article 38.
Oh, because I just. took it.
Hmm?
Shoot, I didn't sign that. This is yours. Lori, I have it over there already.
You have all of them, all the pieces?
Yeah.
Okay,
There you go.
and we have all the pieces. All righty. What happened? Happy?
It'll take,
This is all for you.
it'll be next week. See? It'll be next week. Paula, that's the question I need to ask.
Tomorrow, the executive.
Y'all had mentioned that you could help with
And then tomorrow night.
getting the materials out together and out.
And then it goes.
I think
Oh,
we
well,
need to
okay,
get that done.
so yes, but I'm gonna need some help, like, have
Yeah.
one.
We're calling an emergency
PCTA.
executive board meeting
Yeah.
Yeah,
for like a half hour before the
bigger.
FR council
so we
starts.
have, so thus
And,
far we have the
Because we need them to approve it in order.
envelopes and rosters,
Yes, next week will be
and
ratification.
we can make all the
We'll be
all the
ready to go.
copies.
Yep. What date? Just let me know what are you thinking?
So ratifications, we anticipate it running Wednesday through Friday of next week,
Okay,
which means that it probably, oh, it's Thursday.
How many notes did you
We're supposed to give 3, so we would, but the last one could be on the day that it starts. So we should probably give a first notification on Friday.
Second notification Monday.
No, tomorrow's Thursday. What day is it?
Tomorrow is.
Right.
Tomorrow is
Oh,
Thursday.
But we want to have
So-
tomorrow
I
night.
know,
We have to approve it tomorrow.
right.
So,
Right,
right, it has to be
notification
approved
one.
tomorrow night, so you can't give a notification till Friday.
Friday, notification 2.
And then I guess, right, Monday would be 2, and then
Will
we're
it be
starting it on
electronic?
Wednesday, so we can do the 3rd one on Wednesday morning.
The
do you think?
notification can be electronic.
The vote.
The
No, the
vote.
vote can-
vote's gotta be in person or paper.
So if we go ahead and get, if we have the copies made,
We figured they needed to probably get out, because you're gonna be, the ratification will be Wednesday, Thursday.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
So we'll count Friday night. So they,
I don't think we should do Friday. I think we should just do Wednesday and Thursday.
We have to make sure it gets.
I will,
No, they don't
No,
go,
they're
in the
not
results don't
supposed-
go in the.
They
pony.
can't come back and
They know, but the ballots have to
Yeah.
get out in the pony and that can take 3 days on the ABC schedule.
so again, we will handle it like we did PESPA. I will call Mr. Hervick on the way home. I will see how many drivers, again, if I give them a day. And again, we talked about this and it actually worked out the last time, but you know, the mid-county, if we can get some help, like these neighboring schools, we can take care of, right? And like, we can drop off, but
Right,
it's
we
the
can
north
pick up
end. So
some.
let me look at the pony route. And if we can get it, it seemed to work with PESPA. We got it done pretty quickly, but I think we had a few extra days. They need to be delivered and in the schools by Tuesday. We have until Tuesday.
Yeah. So if they went out in the, so I guess the question is, should we have the materials to you Friday or Monday?
I meet it Friday.
Friday,
I'm saying Friday morning.
okay,
Because I would think I would have to have, listen, I gotta corral people.
Yeah.
We're all
Can
short
y'all-
staffed, right?
right.
I gotta figure out how to do that.
and so, but are the staff here that helped us stuff the envelopes for PESPA, can we still ask them to help?
Yes, I will do that.
Okay.
Because I have to monitor them.
We use
They're
those
the young
tools,
kids,
right?
but
Well, I mean, so,
so can I also ask
We could
another
do
question?
Thursday.
Are you having your reps tomorrow? Is it just leader? And I don't.
we have
Oh,
we have a board, a specially called board meeting that's gonna precede rep council, and then we'll have rep council with, and we
So they'll
intend
approve it
to,
on the same night.
yeah, we
So-
intend to take it.
And I'm so sorry. So I don't know your inner workings and I apologize.
okay.
So is that a rep from every school that comes
And they try.
about?
Well,
Could it
yeah.
help? Could that be ready tomorrow night for them to pick it up and take it with them? And then we will handle
The
whoever's
ones that
not.
are.
That's what I was thinking. That's what we
I
normally do.
know
It's
it's a lot.
pretty
I don't know
tight
if you can
turnaround to
do-
do it that way.
I mean, even
But-
if it's 30 people, I can take it. It helps our.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Delivery. So I don't know if they're there and they could count out how many they need and take them themselves, I mean. You can.
That's it, that, yeah,
Right?
that
If
is a
they're
good
put
idea.
together and like things at 10, it would.
Right.
I think your board would help.
Yeah.
Put that together.
It's one thing if I'm a one person and I need to count out 50 ballots and take one flip and put it.
Well, to that, yeah, to that point, what we do is print the ballots out and they're printed on a half sheet.
Yep.
And then maybe even a quarter sheet. I'm not, I think it's quarter sheet. Part of the challenge with it is cutting it, get them,
So again, if I were a rep, and I had 50 people
mine
at
right
my
now.
school, I'd take 10 slips of paper or whatever, and I would just cut it at my school and put it out. Like, I think these are.
Yeah.
People who probably do this every day in the classroom, right?
yeah.
Even if that could take away half of the work, then we could take care of and
Okay.
get those in the pony for the others, and make sure that those go.
yeah, that's what I was thinking is
Okay.
if we can try to have a lot of them ready for the reps.
So we also were thinking about putting, kind of similar to PESPA, is putting together an instruction for those sites that don't have a rep.
Yep.
How, because it, and just putting, if you don't mind sending out that same instruction via email.
Yep. Yeah, if you put whatever if you have language you want me to send out,
Mhm.
I can do that.
Okay,
I
thanks.
don't know who I would give it to, but I could send it to the person and say, please give it to your rep. I think that's what we did. Or
Yeah, if
something,
they,
right?
but if they didn't have, if they
Oh,
don't
I'm
have a
sorry.
rep,
If they don't have a
if
rep.
they don't
then
have a rep, we would probably
That was the email. I
find
did with
another
Beth.
way to identify, because what we want to be able to do is say, even if we didn't get any feedback from that school, this is where these materials should have gone,
Correct.
you
Correct.
know?
Yeah,
Okay,
we did that for PASPA. We said, if you don't have a, if you don't have a rep, please get it to,
Yeah.
I think we asked, find a mem,
Mhm.
find somebody in that group.
Yep.
And have them
I
help.
remember. Yeah, okay, so, yeah,
So why don't you give me
Okay.
a call tomorrow?
Yeah.
Tell me how you think it's going, how that
Yeah.
looks like. That way I can kind of plan
Yeah.
accordingly for Friday.
the biggest help is the pony and making sure
Yeah,
it
yeah,
gets out.
yeah.
That's the hardest.
And
part.
it would help out if I
Yeah.
have the number.
If there's not as
I can
many,
get
right?
it.
Yep.
I can get that.
Okay,
Okay?
okay, all right,
So what we can do is we can look at the
All right,
attendance lists.
ladies,
Yeah.
of the
gentlemen,
ones who
friends,
we
boys
know
and girls,
come
to
all
the
the time
volley,
and make sure
goodbye.
those are ready.
I'll do it. I'll do it.
yeah, just want to make sure to, yeah. The fidelity of the process.